long time no see. So I know I've been MIA for the past month or so, but I have a pretty legitimate excuse because, as you can see, I had a baby. This is Samuel Vicente, and he was born on September 12th at 10:40 p.m. and he weighed 8 pounds 3 ounces and was 21 inches long. And he was actually 3 weeks early. I had him 3 weeks before my due date. And he was already 8 pounds then, so you can imagine how big he would have been if I would have went the full 40 weeks. So, yes, we are blessed with a beautiful baby boy, a very big baby boy. I'm just so in love. I can't believe how perfect and beautiful he is, and we are just so blessed, and he's such a good baby. But anyway, I thought it would be fun to share the whole labor and delivery and birth experience with you guys. So hopefully I can remember everything. I wanted to have my husband do this with me too to help me kind of remember things, but he's at work. I just wanted to get it done since I had some free time. So I'll do the best I can to kind of remember the details. And just a little disclaimer before I get started, we had a very traumatic experience with the whole labor and delivery thing. So if I get a little emotional while telling the story, just bear with me. It was really hard to talk about it the first few weeks after, or even think about it. So, I mean, I'm a little bit better about it now, but yeah, just a little disclaimer. But I guess I will just start from the beginning. So about 3:30 a.m. on September 12th, I was woken up because I thought I had peed the bed. So I literally jumped out, ran to the bathroom, and the entire time water's like gushing down my leg, and I'm like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just peed the bed. So anyway, I go to the bathroom, and I'm sitting there for a good couple of minutes, and I'm still going, and it just will not stop. And I've read that when your water breaks, it just doesn't stop, it just continues to leak and leak and leak. So at that point I kind of thought, okay, maybe my water broke, So I yelled for my husband, came over, and I said, I think my water broke, but I'm not sure. There might be a little wet spot in our bed. So he went to go check, and he's like, Lena, that is not a little wet spot. That is like a huge wet spot. I'm like, okay, oh my gosh. And it was still like leaking out of me, by the way. I got cleaned up, put a pad on, and I called the hospital and told them I think my water broke, but I'm not sure. And at that point, I wasn't having contractions either, so that's why I wasn't really sure if my water broke. So I asked if I should come in now or when I start having contractions or what. And they're like, no, if you think your water broke, go ahead and come in right now. We packed a hospital bag real quick. I was actually supposed to pack my hospital bag that weekend. Like I said, I was 37 weeks, so I thought I had plenty of time. But yeah, I still had not packed my hospital bag yet, so we very quickly packed up a little something. I kind of had an idea what I wanted to bring anyway, so it wasn't really that hard. But yeah, so we packed a bag, drove to the hospital. Thankfully, my hospital is like literally right around the corner, so we were there in no time. And then once we got to the hospital, I finally started to kind of start feeling contractions, but they were very, very mild. I mean, I could hardly tell that they were contractions. And it was the middle of the night, so we went in through the emergency room, and they, got us all checked in and brought us to labor and delivery, and they had me put on a gown and pee in a cup, and then they checked me to see how dilated I was and all that good stuff. And I think at that point, they said I was 3 centimeters. So they admitted me, and yeah. And at that point, my contractions started to get a little bit stronger, but they still really weren't all that bad. They were still fairly tolerable. I mean, I could like talk like this, while having a contraction. Like, they weren't really all that bad. A little later, we called family and let them know, hey, I'm in labor, I'm in the hospital, la da da. Eventually, family members started to come, like my parents and my brother and his wife, they all came. And pretty much stayed the entire day and waited for me to have the baby. So a couple hours into labor, the doctor showed up, they checked me. She said I was at a 2, so I think just the nurses were kind of inaccurate with their estimate that morning when I was first admitted. So I really hadn't progressed at all during this first few hours that I was there. And since my water broke, it's not good for you to be in labor for that long because the baby's not protected by that amniotic sac anymore, and they're more susceptible to being introduced to bacteria and getting an infection. So they wanted to give me Pitocin to speed up my labor so that he wouldn't be in there unprotected for that long. Yeah, they gave me Pitocin, and almost right away, my contractions started to get much stronger, and a lot more painful, and for some reason I started getting really bad anxiety and was really afraid of feeling like any pain, especially when it came to like pushing and actually delivering him. For some reason I was just terrified to feel any pain, so I asked for an epidural, and I was still only about 2 centimeters at that point. Yeah. So the anesthesiologist came in about 30 minutes later, and they started the whole epidural process, which was not fun, by the way. And everyone tells me that you can't even feel them doing the epidural. Well, I felt it, and it was not fun. So yeah. Basically, from what my husband tells me, he had to keep giving me numbing medication, like a lot. All I remember is he kept, poking me in the back and asking me, okay, is this the center, or does this feel like it's to the right or the left or whatever? And I kept saying, it feels like it's to the right. It never felt like it was like in the center. So I think when he was doing that, I guess he was giving me more numbing medication, but I'm not really sure. I have no idea what he was doing. But anyway, finally, because he wanted me to tell him when it was like in the middle. So when I finally did feel like he was poking me in the middle, I guess he administered the epidural, because it felt like someone took like a screw in my spine and twisted it. And oh my god, I like kind of jumped and screamed when he did that. Yeah, I don't know what that was, if that was numbing medication, if that was epidural or what, but I felt it, and it was not fun at all. So I guess he gave me more numbing medication, I don't know. But eventually he was able to administer the epidural, and he said it would kick in within about, I think, 20 minutes, and it took about a good hour for it to finally start kicking in. I think he had to keep increasing my dose also with the epidural, in order for me to like start feeling it. But needless to say, once it did start kicking in, I felt amazing. I felt no pain. I was able to relax, and we took a nap for a couple hours. And then I progressed fairly, not quickly after that, but I started to progress after that. So fast forward to when I reached 7 centimeters. I don't know how long it had been or how much time had passed at that point. I don't remember. This boy is heavy. Oh, my heavy little boy. But anyway, once I had reached 7 centimeters, I started to get the shakes like really bad, like uncontrollable shakes, kind of like when you have chills, when you have a fever, like that, but like really intense. And they say once you reach 7 centimeters, you're in transition, and you get like this flood of hormones, which I guess causes the shaking. But anyway, so I had uncontrollable shaking for what felt like probably a couple hours. And I actually, for some reason, I had this feeling like I was gonna just start crying for no reason. And I even told my husband, I'm like, I'm gonna start crying right now, and I have no idea why. But I just started bawling like a baby, and I had absolutely no reason why. I guess just all the hormones, whatever, just made me want to cry, and I just started crying. And then I felt nauseous and told my husband I was gonna vomit, and sure enough, I vomited all over myself, and that was not fun. So yeah, I vomited all over myself. They cleaned me up. So I don't really remember exactly where I was as far as how dilated I was then or anything like that, but I know they told me that if I start to feel like, an urge to push or anything like that, if anything changes, then to let them. Oh, and then also around that time, my epidural seemed to start kind of wearing off a little bit. Like I was having some kind of breakthrough pain. It wasn't like full, I couldn't feel like full on contractions, but I could tell like when I was having a contraction. It was still tolerable, of course, but I could tell when I was having one, which was kind of odd to me. So eventually I felt, kind of felt like the sensation like I had to push. So I let the nurse know, and I guess I was fully dilated at that point, because they said we could go ahead and start pushing. So I remember it was a little bit after 8 p.m. when I started pushing. So I think it had been about 17 hours that I'd been in labor at that point. I believe I had mentioned in my previous pregnancy vlogs that they were kind of encouraging me to do a C-section because he was already so big. In fact, I was supposed to get another sizing ultrasound that week to see how big he had gotten at that point. But he came before then. So anyway, they said, I could go ahead and try to have him vaginally, but things weren't progressing right or whatever. They were impatient and probably wanted to do a C-section. So anyway, I started pushing, which was awful. First of all, I couldn't feel, because of the epidural, I couldn't feel anything down there. I couldn't tell if I was pushing right or what, which I kind of expected that. But anyway, I was like super nauseous the whole time I was pushing. I was throwing up while I was pushing. And eventually they gave me something to kind of ease the nausea. But like every time I pushed, I felt like I was like suffocating, because you know, you have to like put your chin to your chest and hold your breath and push, you know, bear down like you're pooping. And for some reason I just could not hold my breath that long, and I felt like I was suffocating. Just, I don't know if it's just like my neck fat or something was like suffocating me, but I just could not hold my breath for as long as they wanted me to, and I couldn't tell if I was pushing right. And so I kept trying to tell them, like, I can't breathe, I can't, you know what I mean, like I can't hold my breath that long. And they're like, oh, well, your oxygen's fine, you're okay, you know. They didn't really believe me. But yeah, and because I couldn't like feel how I was pushing, I kind of could tell I was like straining a lot, like in my face. Like I felt like I was pushing with my face. And then always at like the last push, they're like, oh yeah, that's perfect, push every time just like that. But I couldn't even tell like what I was doing, what I was doing right, you know. So it was just, it went on like that for 2 hours and really wasn't making any progress. He was crowning, I know that. My husband looked and he saw the head and he had hair and everything, but his heart rate started to increase a lot, and I think mine was too. Okay, we're switching arms because you're very heavy. You're very heavy, baby. I know. Okay. 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 So the doctor said, okay, let's go ahead and do a C-section. So they put me for a C-section. Took them about 30 minutes to get me into the OR. And then anxiety and fear hit me really hard at that point. I was terrified for some reason about going through the C-section. I mean, I know I had no other choice, but just for some reason I was just terrified and had really, really bad anxiety. So as they were wheeling me out, I told my husband, please pray. I'm so scared. Please pray. They wouldn't let him go with me just yet. He had to like gown up and everything. But as they were wheeling me into the operating room, I'm praying the whole time and everything. And for some reason, I just kind of like fell asleep and took like a little nap as they were like prepping me in the OR. Even the nurse was like, are you okay? Are you taking a little nap? I'm like, yeah. So eventually, anxiety kind of calmed down a little bit. And my husband came into the room with me. I immediately felt so much better. And then all I really remember was just a lot of massaging sensation on my stomach. I didn't feel any pain or anything like that. I didn't feel them like cutting me open or anything. I just felt a lot of like massaging like pressure. And I didn't even know if they had gotten started or what. And then before I knew it, my husband's like, oh, he's here. So they brought him over to the table, got him all cleaned up. And I didn't know this at the time, but my husband told me after the fact that he wasn't breathing when he came out, so they had to resuscitate him. But I do remember he wasn't crying when he first came out, and I think I even mentioned that to my husband, like, he's not crying. So immediately started praying, you know, over and over, and I could see them kind of like tapping on his foot and trying to get him to like cry. But I didn't know that he wasn't breathing or anything like that. And apparently they were like sticking tubes down his throat and everything, trying to get him to breathe. And I do remember hearing them say that he had a heartbeat. But yeah, he wasn't breathing. So I just kept praying and a few seconds later we did hear a little squeal come from him, so it was such a sigh of relief. But yeah, so they got him breathing and got him all cleaned up, and they showed him to us, and we immediately just started crying. We're so in awe of how beautiful he was. He was just like the most beautiful, just perfect little baby I'd never seen in my life. And we've just been praying for him for such a long time. We're just so thankful that he was here and that he was okay. But, sorry. But yeah, so after they showed him to us, they took him to get all cleaned up and weighed him and everything. And they got me all cleaned up and stitched up and took me to the recovery. And then I was able to do skin to skin with him. and start breastfeeding and all that good stuff. And he had his first bath, and yeah, eventually they put us in our room and everything was great. I don't remember getting much sleep. It had been a really long night, obviously. I don't even know what time we got, put into our room or anything like that. But later on that morning, family came by to visit and to see him. Oh, I forgot to mention too, my family had been there all day waiting for, him to come. And when it came time for me to have the C-section, the nurses told my husband that they weren't going to allow any family to see him. So we told our family to, go home, you're not going to be able to see him, for this reason, whatever. And then after he was born, the nurse asked my husband if there's any family here that wants to see him. And we're like, well, no, I told him to go home. She said that you guys weren't going to allow that. But so unfortunately, none of the family members got to see him when he was actually born. But they all came the next morning to come to meet him and everything. So I was kind of unfortunate about that. But so I don't know what time it was, but his pediatrician ended up coming in and telling me that, the night before he had a fever when I delivered him. And they did blood work, and I guess his white blood cell count was a little high. So they thought that maybe he had some sort of infection. And the hospital that I delivered at, they don't have an ICU unit for babies. So they were going to have to send him out to a different hospital and have him in the ICU on IV antibiotics, just as a precaution. They weren't sure what kind of infection it was. They were going to do more blood work and cultures to see what kind of infection it was. And they were not going to let me go with him. So he got taken away from me and sent out to a different hospital. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. I immediately just started bawling, and all my family and my husband's family were in the room when that happened. So yeah, I was an emotional wreck when I found that out. But my doctor did say I could go home the next day. So I was grateful for that, but still being separated from him for one night. When I just got him, it was just the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my entire life, and I can't even describe what that pain was like. It literally felt like a piece of my heart was ripped from me. That's the best way I can describe it, and that doesn't even do it justice. So yeah, but my husband was able to go with him, so I told him, go be with him. So he followed, the ambulance over there to the other hospital and was with him for a few hours. And eventually came back to the hospital to stay with me for the night. But because he was separated from me, they had to give him a bottle, which really sucks because we were kind of getting the hang of breastfeeding. Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. So I got discharged the next morning pretty early, and immediately went over to go see him and spent time with him, and actually found out they were going to take him off of the antibiotics, I think, that day. I don't think he actually really had an infection. It was more just a precaution sort of thing. So he was only on the IV antibiotics for a day or so, if that. That was Monday. That was a Monday when I got discharged to go see him, and we found all that out. They weren't going to let him go home yet. So we found out on Tuesday that he was a little jaundiced, so he had to stay another night and be under the UV lights and everything. So finally, on Wednesday morning, we got the good news that everything was fine and we got to take him home finally. So yeah, you can imagine just how happy we were about that. Yeah, and the rest is history. My recovery has been really well. That first week was probably the hardest. It was really hard to walk and I was in a lot of pain. I did what I had to do to go see my baby, so I wasn't going to let any pain or whatever stop me. And I think that kind of had a lot to do with how fast my recovery went, just because I kind of was like, okay, I need to get better so I can go see my baby and take care of my baby. So literally after a week or two, I wasn't even taking pain medication anymore, and I was walking normal, and I felt great. So that's pretty awesome. And that's pretty much my whole experience. It was very traumatic for me and kind of turned me off to wanting to have another baby anytime soon, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I'm just so grateful to have him here, and he's obviously healthy now. He is a little over 6 weeks old now, and he's doing great. I'm doing great, and we're just so happy. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Hopefully I didn't forget any important details, but I want to get back in the groove of posting again soon. It is a little harder to do it these days with a little one, but I definitely want to do like postpartum updates and baby updates and talk about different baby stuff that I'm using or that I enjoy using and things like that. And we are going to Disneyland again very soon for the last time. Our passes are expiring, so this will be our last trip for probably a year or two. So I plan on filming a lot of content at Disneyland. I thought about like vlogging our trip, but we'll see about that because I still get kind of nervous vlogging in public. So we'll see if I do that or not. But I definitely want to do like, you know, restaurant and hotel reviews, and all that good stuff. So hopefully I'll have some good content coming up. I still want to post anything baby or mommy related on Wednesdays, and anything Disney or randomly related stuff on Mondays. So my goal is still to post at least once a week. And on a really good week, I'll post something twice. But yeah, those are kind of my goals for now. We'll kind of see how it goes. There may be weeks where I don't post anything, and you know, I'm just gonna kind of go with the flow because it's really hard to like film and edit and stuff with a newborn, especially when, you know, I'm with him by myself and his dad's at work. So yeah, we'll do what we can do, and thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to leave any comments or questions down below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.